I'm Juliet, and this is my Art Talk. Today we are going to be connecting reality TV, including game shows, to different pieces of your art. But why did you choose reality TV to relate to your art? Well, lots of people in society seem to value fame, but up until recently you needed to have some sort of special skill or attribute to become famous. When reality TV and game shows came into the picture, they completely flipped that idea on its head. All of a sudden, people just like you and me were thrown into the spotlight. So how does reality TV relate to your art? Reality TV shows, including game shows, are a direct representation of what the majority of society finds indulgent. It's one of the few things we can call trashy in an affectionate way. We make fun of reality TV and game shows and play down their importance, but they actually tell us a lot about what we value as a society. Game shows and reality TV are like this meta signal for society, making them a great lens to use when we talk about art. Also, one of the main goals of my art is to expose human culture and behavior, and reality TV and game shows do exactly that. So, the first TV show we are going to be talking about is The Bachelor or Bachelorette. On it, one man or woman is surrounded by many potential love interests of the opposite sex. Every week, contestants get eliminated. This is symbolized through roses that are given out. At the end, just one gets the final rose, which is supposed to represent some kind of promise for their future together. How does that relate to your art? The piece I've chosen to link with The Bachelor and Bachelorette is called Cold by the Fire, which focuses on self-deception. It is a representation of the things we know aren't real but cling on to in order to survive. We desperately grasp onto the ideas that keep us feeling human, even when the ideas have become an illusion. When watching The Bachelor or Bachelorette, you can't help but feel an intense sense of fakeness, especially when somehow every season The Bachelor or Bachelorette acts like they are seriously considering proposing to multiple people. However, that being said, I also get the sense from many of the contestants that they want it to be real and that they are genuinely there for love. And that's just like the hands in Cold by the Fire. They are seeking warmth from an illusion. The next TV show is Beat the Clock, which was a 1950s game show where contestants were required to perform tasks before a large 60-second clock runs out of time. If they succeeded, they were said to have beaten the clock. Otherwise, the clock beat them. Why did you pick it, and what related art piece will you share? Just like The Bachelor, Beat the Clock makes us think about commonly held illusions within our society. In Beat the Clock, it's the illusion that there is some way to win against time. Looking deeper, Beat the Clock is really about how we compete against the concept and construct of time, for which we only really have ourselves to blame. After all, who designed the tasks the contestants perform, and why exactly did they have to be completed in a strict time limit? The piece Do You Have the Time playfully imagines a different construct of time that is a strange and uncontrollable beast. The art and game show both make us ask, who can really hold and control time? We want to believe it's predictable and can be tamed, but really, we are at its mercy. The next TV show is Keeping Up with the Kardashians. It's an inside look at the lives of Kim, Kourtney, Khloe, Kendall, and Kylie, and Kris Kardashian as they juggle business and personal relationships. So how does that relate to your art? The piece, It's Never Been So Difficult to Get Calcium, is similar to the Kardashians, and that is about buying into the ideas and concepts that nobody needs and aren't even necessarily beneficial. Both are about committing to something so intensely that you believe it and pursue it, even when it is harmful. Similar to the commercial push of cow's milk in North America, the Kardashians push a facade of a pseudo-glamorous yet unattainable lifestyle. Well, the next TV show is anything but glamorous. Hoarders is a pseudo-documentary that follows the real-life struggles and treatment of people who suffer from compulsive hoarding disorder. Why did you pick it? I think Hoarders is a productive way for people to understand and process the piece I've Got a Case of the Mondays, which is a slightly dramatized version of the effect of continuously ignoring our own loneliness. The film and reality show both focus on the topic of mental illness and raise important questions about stigma and exploitation of people who are vulnerable. In the case of Hoarders, we have to wonder if the reason it is so popular is that it makes people feel better about themselves, see others who are in worse situations. The same concept could apply to the piece I've Got a Case of the Mondays, except in that case, I'm putting myself into the spotlight and in a way exploiting my own mental illness, which may or may not make a difference to whether it is morally justified. I think the reason a lot of these shows exist is that there is a general curiosity within our society about mental illness and mental health. because of this, it leads us to this divide, because on one hand, it feels right to present and discuss it openly versus suppress and hide it. However, on the other hand, I don't know if there is a responsible and accurate way to go about presenting mental health and mental illness in different forms of media. The last thing I'm going to talk about related to hoarders is the way that the show takes very complex people and strips them down to this very singular identity of a hoarder. Does that connect to the next game show, Identity? I understand it was a show where contestants could win up to $500,000 by matching 12 strangers' visual appearances to short phrases and facts about the strangers' identities. Yes, I think the show Hoarders and Identity are connected by the fact that they both really oversimplify what it means to be a person. I also think that as viewers, we need to ask ourselves why we're attracted to shows that display people as the most one-dimensional versions of themselves. The piece that I'm going to talk about that's related to the game show Identity is Make No Mistake. The piece was originally inspired by female politicians that had spoken about how intentional they had to be when it came to their appearance. Because there was no rule book for them to follow, they often found themselves suppressing or even killing parts of themselves to fit into a mold that had ultimately been created by men. Although this is where the concept originated, I think this is a concept we can all relate to. This idea of getting rid of a part of ourselves or hiding a part of ourselves to fit into the perceptions of other people. The game show Identity and the film Make No Mistake warn us about the dangers of how much we infer about people just based on their looks, gender, and ethnicity. The media perpetuates so many stereotypes that we internalize and may not even recognize as our own biases. Is that a segue into Breaking Amish, the reality show that documents the lives of 5 teenagers who take up an offer to leave their religious communities and move to New York City? Yes, Breaking Amish is another show that has a strong theme of identity. We also see the theme identity in the piece Deflated Counterpart. This work consists of body parts that are made of vinyl, male and female clothes sewn together that are then connected to a series of air mattress pumps that are out of sync. The different elements of the installation can represent multiple identities of a single person coming together. Or it can also represent a relationship between 2 people. Breaking Amish connects with Deflated Counterpart because the show's premise is that Amish teenagers have distinct and different parts of their personalities, and that they can also explore identities that are different from those of their direct communities and surroundings. Next up is Toddlers and Tiaras, the infamous reality show that featured mothers and daughters competing in children's beauty pageants. I'm very curious to know why you picked the show and how it relates to your art. Well, clearly it's another reality show with a theme related to identity. Many of the very young girls come from families that are willing to make huge investments in turning their daughters into mini versions of Miss America. I think Toddlers and Tiaras is a great example of what happens when something is perfectly executed, yet still kind of disturbing. The related art piece I'm going to talk about is Out of Step. It presents a fluid motion of 2 shoes that never really get in sync. Out of Step emulates walking, however, doesn't get anywhere. Both the art and reality show tell us that something can be a whole complete thing, yet still dysfunctional. Out of Step also includes one child-sized dress shoe and 1 adult dress shoe. Just like Toddlers and Tiaras, this can be understood as a metaphor for how things may be perceived when we project adult identities and characteristics onto children. Okay, so how do identity and illusion fit into the next show, Love is Blind? The show is described as a social experiment in which single men and women look for love and to get engaged, all based on dates that happen behind closed doors. As radical as Love is Blind is trying to be by taking away the visual element of finding the one, I couldn't help but feel an intense sense of tragedy when I was watching the show. The show is so disastrous that after Love is Blind came out, I read articles that were titled, "Are Straight People Okay?" It's almost as if the contestants were driven to be on the show as a last resort in some desperate need to find their soulmate. I think this concept connects really well to the sculpture Morphed in Matrimony. The people on Love is Blind actually do seem to want to get married. However, the more authentic the contestants are, the more disturbing the show becomes. The sculpture Morphed in Matrimony similarly shows what happens when the concepts of love and marriage go too far. I think ultimately people should be able to celebrate their love however they want, but we also need to consider the commercialization of love. Are people getting married for the right reasons, or are they simply trying to meet a timeline that has been forced on them through society? At the surface, Love is Blind might seem like it has the right intentions, but look a little closer, and just like the piece Morphed in Matrimony, you see that things are horribly wrong. Our last show is one I haven't heard of, Human Wrecking Ball. In it, two brothers demolish everything from boats to cars to houses using only their bare hands. Why did you pick that, and do you have a piece that relates to it? I picked the show Human Wrecking Ball as evidence of our desire to watch things fall apart. I think the show is successful because there is a part of all of us that craves entropy and disturbing scenes. The piece Helpless Pawn shows a person calmly watching a house burn down as if they were watching a pleasant scene. Both Helpless Pawn and Human Wrecking Ball make the point that there is a part of all of us that is drawn to large-scale destruction. So, that's all the time we have. Any closing thoughts about reality TV game shows and art? The weird and great thing about reality TV is that it makes us more self-aware. We understand that a lot of it is fake, but reality is right in the name. Because of this, we look for snippets of the real things within it. In that way, reality TV can also help us be more analytical of the things in society that might be misleading or one-sided. Overall, I think reality TV can act as a playful metaphor for the rest of life. It makes people think about themselves and society as a whole, and isn't that exactly what art is supposed to do? Well, let's leave it at that. Juliet, thanks so much for joining me. Thanks for having me. I hope you enjoyed this art talk.